Ignition sequence start.
Good morning, and welcome into a view of the International Space Station Flight Control Room and the team of flight controllers on console there working to manage space station operations and assist the Expedition 67 crew members in scientific research and station maintenance in low Earth orbit. Commander Tom Marshburn and his American, Russian, and German crewmates are getting into a more routine kind of station schedule after saying goodbye to 3 crewmates earlier this week, including 2 who had been on the station for almost a full year.
Houston Station on space to ground.
Touchdown. Mark Vande Hei and Pyotr Dubrov back home 1 year after leaving the planet.
Welcome to Space to Ground. I'm Nilofer Ramji. NASA astronaut Mark Vande Hei came home this week after a record 355 days in space. Vande Hei arrived at the space station last year on April 9th. His time in orbit breaks the previous American record held by former NASA astronaut Scott Kelly by 15 days. As scheduled, Vande Hei returned to Earth on Wednesday, March 30th alongside cosmonauts Pyotr Dubrov and Anton Shkaplerov. As we prepare for deep space exploration of the Moon and Mars, missions like Vande Hei's will inform researchers on the effects of long-duration life in microgravity.
What we're doing, in effect, is practicing keeping people healthy on a long trip through space. The big difference is when we get our first folks to Mars, we're not going to have a staff of nurses and doctors there to make sure we're healthy and take care of us. So being able to contribute to that is something I will always be very, very proud of.
During his time on the orbiting laboratory, Vande Hei participated in and conducted many science investigations.
Anytime you can take science experiments and change the variables, you learn something new. And the space station provides unique ability to have solutions where you don't have sedimentation, where you can keep a homogeneous mixture, for example. Buoyant forces just don't work the same way, so the way combustion works is different. But also I'd say space is exciting because we human beings are explorers at our core, and we want to understand better how we fit into the vast scheme of things. And the further we go, the more we learn.
So, after spending close to a year in space, what will he miss about it?
I will miss the certainty that every day I'm spending contributing with innovations in science, technological demonstrations that are helping out all of humanity and pushing the boundaries of human existence.
Now that he's back on terra firma, Mark will take some time to relax and rehabilitate to help him balance out the rigors of year-long space travel.
Thanks for being here! Yeah!
For more about this incredible achievement, we invite you to follow us on Twitter at ISS_research. That's Space to Ground for this week. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week.
As you just heard, there's a new American record holder for longest single spaceflight. NASA astronaut Mark Vande Hei is back on Earth after 355 consecutive days off of the planet. Although pleased with the achievement, Vande Hei expects someone will break his record soon as America tackles new frontiers in space exploration. Take a look at some of the highlights of Vande Hei's almost a year in space on his second mission to the International Space Station.
And we see booster ignition
Engines at maximum thrust.
and liftoff.
I'm a big fan of believing in possibilities. We've got hundreds of experiments going on throughout the time we're on board. Every day I'm spending contributing with innovations in science, technological demonstrations that are helping out all of humanity and pushing the boundaries of human existence. One of the joys of being up here for this extended period of time is all of the wonderful people that I've got to live here and work here with.
Christmas Day, we actually had a cookie decorating contest. And actually, Mark, I think you won Best in Show.
I don't think it's a record that I would even attribute to me. It's a record for our space program. I think it's just another step forward for humanity. And I also don't expect that to be a record that would last for very long, because we're doing bigger and better things all the time. I always thought being an astronaut would be an amazing thing. Never thought it would be a real possibility. But the thing that always inspired me about it was this idea that we get to explore and do it in a way that benefits all of humanity.
Shortly before he left the station for home, Vande Hei answered some questions posed on social media, and he reflected on his record-breaking mission, designed, as all expeditions are, to advance scientific knowledge and demonstrate new technologies for future human and robotic exploration missions.
What did I bring on this mission? I brought my wedding ring. It's not on my finger, but it's always been on my watch band. And was I upside down a lot? Every time I needed to be upside down, I did it. And I got really comfortable flipping directions, no hands. So that's one of the joys about spaceflight. Now that you've set a record of consecutive number of days in space, have you decided to make any changes in your life to get outside as much as possible? I've had an indoor job 24/7 for almost a year, so I am looking forward to being outside no matter what kind of weather. Has spending time in space changed my view of our home planet? The big change in how I view the planet is really this concept that we all have as Earthlings of being separate from space. Having been up here, looking down on the Earth from outside the atmosphere, to me that atmosphere right now looks so thin that back on Earth, it seems much clearer to me that when you're standing outside looking up at the stars, you're really in space. The only thing separating you from the vacuum of space is that precious thin layer of atmosphere that we call home. How important was your mission to the space station, to our planet, and to yourself as a human being? Every day, there's 60 to 100 experiments going on at any given time. Now, we don't operate those experiments all the time, but they are on the space station in progress. And I really believe that all the days we spend on the space station, the money we've invested, the talent we've invested, will continue to result in fantastic scientific discoveries and will just help humans progress. What scientific experiment did I like working on the most and why? A unique experience we had with growing Hatch chili peppers. And the reason I like it so much is because when I opened up that cover and could smell those peppers, it was such a shocking difference, this smell of plants and vegetation. It was amazing. And then we got to eat the peppers. So that was a huge bonus. What was my most memorable experience on the International Space Station? I would say on this trip it has been some of the auroras we've seen, either the Aurora Australis down south or the Aurora Borealis up north. I just had this incredible sense of witnessing something that was timeless. I'm really looking forward to seeing you all again and can't wait to get back home to Earth.
Mark Vande Hei's extended mission on the International Space Station provides researchers with another opportunity to observe the effects of long-duration spaceflight on the human body as NASA prepares to return to the Moon under the Artemis program and to prepare for human exploration of Mars. During his time in space, Vande Hei supported science research on other experiments too, supporting everything ranging from plant research to physical sciences studies.
Good morning, Expedition 64.
Good morning, Expedition 65.
Good morning, Expedition 66. We are happy to be working with you today.
Good morning.
Anytime you can take science experiments and change the variables, you learn something new. And the space station provides unique ability to have solutions where you don't have sedimentation, where you can keep a homogeneous mixture, for example. Buoyant forces just don't work the same way, so the way combustion works is different. But also I'd say space is exciting because we human beings are explorers at our core, and we want to understand better how we fit into the vast scheme of things. And the further we go, the more we learn.
What was your favorite experiment on the International Space Station?
Toby, great question. My favorite experiment was the one that I got to eat. It was us growing hatch chili peppers in our plant habitat. And some of them got frozen to go back to the ground, but many got to stay with us and we ate them.
Station Huntsville on 2. We have video in Node 1. Look at those chili peppers.
What we're doing, in effect, is practicing keeping people healthy on a long trip through space. The big difference is when we get our first folks to Mars, we're not going to have a staff of nurses and doctors there to make sure we're healthy and take care of us. So being able to contribute to that is something I will always be very, very proud of.
On behalf of the entire control team, we just wanted to say congratulations to you and Piotr on 300 days in space, and we're just so proud of you and all the work you're doing.
That was very kind of you to say. This is definitely a team accomplishment. Thanks again for the words.
It's a beautiful view when you turn off all the lights inside the space station and you can look out the window, and it is glorious. And this very thin atmosphere, which is essential to our existence, that's a very finite resource that we need to protect. I will miss the certainty that every day I'm spending contributing with innovations in science, technological demonstrations that are helping out all of humanity and pushing the boundaries of human existence. There is a very strong sense of purpose for all of us up here as we do this work.
Up there in orbit during long-duration spaceflight, the astronauts and cosmonauts can experience structural changes to their hearts, but exactly what changes and how they occur are not yet clearly understood. Well, that's why researchers are investigating cardiovascular stem cells, so they can better understand the role those cells play in the makeup of our hearts, as well as in tissue regeneration.
We're one of the first labs to be sending cardiovascular progenitor cells, so we know that they're an early population of cells. They're very potent in what they can become. We're able to create different types of cardiac tissue, whether it be cardiomyocytes, the heart muscle cells, or endothelium, the lining of blood vessels. These cells that we work with have the capacity to become a variety of different cardiovascular derivatives, and they function in a unique way in response to the environment and to different treatments. And so there's a lot that we can learn from these experiments. So the Kearns-Yonker Laboratory has been studying cardiovascular progenitor cells for a while and using them for cardiac repair, developing biologically active tissues. We'll be looking at disparities in the response of cells obtained from neonatal patients versus adult patients, and how that disparity exists at a molecular level. We'll be able to compare the microgravity exposed cells to the simulated exposed cells using the same clones. We'll be able to compare these two results and see if we can use simulated microgravity or even some type of microgravity-inspired treatment to help really promote cardiac repair. We're really excited for the spaceflight. We've been learning quite a bit even from the simulations, and we think that with the spaceflight we'll be able to truly extend these observations and hopefully promote cardiac repair, develop biologically active tissue, and even advance these insights into anticipating and treating illnesses in space.
One of the best parts about being an astronaut on the International Space Station, or so I'm told, is that you get to look out the window at a living color view of Earth. In this demonstrations episode, astronaut Randy Bresnik discusses the station's role as an Earth monitoring and diagnosis station, while showing off some of the amazing images he and his colleagues have captured from 250 miles straight up.
Hello, I'm astronaut Randy Bresnik. Want to know one of the best parts about being an astronaut up in space? Our view of the Earth from the International Space Station is absolutely spectacular. And viewing the Earth from space is a big part of our job. In addition to many other important functions, the International Space Station serves as a global monitoring and diagnosis station where we can conduct observations across the globe, aimed at understanding and resolving environmental issues we face on our home planet. Let's have a look. The space station offers a unique vantage point for observing the Earth's ecosystems with hands-on and automated cameras and image capture equipment. These tools enable astronauts to both observe and explain what they're witnessing in real time. The image capture equipment on the space station also provides input to personnel back on Earth, working to program the station's automated Earth sensing systems, providing flexibility and an advantage over sensors on unmanned spacecraft and satellites. Scientists and researchers find this especially useful when unexpected natural events such as volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, hurricanes, fires, and other natural disasters like floods occur. Through existing international and interagency partnerships fundamental to the International Space Station, data sharing that can benefit people around the world is facilitated, promoting international collaboration on a range of Earth observation activities. A wide variety of Earth observation equipment can be attached to the space station's exterior, like I did on one of my spacewalks. Several instruments have already been installed, and researchers from around the globe are proposing additional payloads to install. In continuing to use a combination of crew-operated and automated Earth observation payloads, the space station collects crucial data on the global climate, environmental change, and potential hazards to the health of humanity and our home planet. The Window Observational Research Facility, or as we call it, the WRF, provides a highly stable internal mounting platform to hold cameras and sensors. With the WRF, the high-quality optics of the nadir, or the bottom viewing window of the space station, allows us to look straight down onto Earth. Do you want to participate in some of our Earth observation missions? Come join us. Check out the Sally Ride EarthCam website. Go to earthcam.org and follow the instructions to sign up. And have a look at some of the spectacular Earth views from space and see what you can identify. You can also try the activity in the link we provided in the description of this video. Thanks for joining me. See you all next time.
We've mentioned a time or two that the International Space Station is not the only NASA mission that's creating benefits for those of us here on Earth, which is one of the many planets NASA observes and studies from orbit. In the case of this blue marble, tracking agricultural conditions helps the inhabitants stay on top of food security issues. Our colleagues at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center have a look at how NASA can monitor agriculture conditions around the world to support the creation of, among other things, the snacks we all enjoy.
We use satellite data to track... Hello, my name is Jocelyn Argueta, and this is Snack Time with NASA. Today we're making a big favorite in my house, chips and dip. We are NASA though, so this isn't going to be your run-of-the-mill dip. This will be a 7-layer cropland dip. Stick with me here. Did you know that NASA plays a big part in the food you eat? We use data from space to monitor agriculture and track food security. So coincidentally, we have some of the crops that we keep an eye on. Get it now? 7-layer cropland dip. So we can send a rover to Mars, but now the question is, can we make a tasty dip? But before we get started, I want to welcome Dr. Inbal Becker-Reshef, who's here to tell us all about NASA's connection to the food we eat. Hi Inbal, how are you doing today?
Hi Jocelyn, great. How are you?
Awesome, it's great to have you. So first things first, are you a fan of chips and dip?
I love chips and dip. Yes.
Oh, good. Good to hear. So, as the director of NASA's Agriculture and Food Security Program, can you tell us a little bit about why NASA studies agriculture in the first place when we're known more for space exploration than cooking?
As we all know, our planet Earth is also a planet, and so NASA has satellites that are pointing out into space, but it also has a lot of Earth observing satellites pointing here down at Earth. And of course that's really critical because we live here, and that's important for us to track and understand how we're changing our planet, how our planet is responding, and in particular tracking agriculture, which is what we're concerned with here. Food security and agriculture are one of the biggest challenges we face in this century. And NASA's satellite data, since actually going back to early days of satellite monitoring, there has always been a large focus on agriculture. Agriculture covers a huge part of our land system, and what that does is that helps us to get an accurate and a timely understanding of potential shortfalls or surplus of crops and food production around the world.
So it sounds like everything is connected, much like different ingredients in a larger dish. And I've just laid down the first layer here of our dip, which are refried black beans. And sounds like Earth observations work in a similar way where things connect together. So how do these observations help us better understand food security and food production, especially in the face of climate change?
As we said, food security is one of the most important and critical challenges that we face. And so therefore having information about where food is being grown, how much of it is being grown, how it's changing over time, how it responds to different climatic factors, to extreme weather events, which of course, as you've said, under climate change and a warming climate, we're seeing more and more erratic weather impacting our food production. And so we have various satellites going up above and turning around us all the time that are helping to monitor different aspects of the agriculture, of our agricultural system. And whether it is for helping us to distinguish where, for example, corn is being grown around the world, how it's developing, how it compares this year versus last year, for example, in the Corn Belt in the United States. And so being able to provide us that information in a timely manner on a global scale is really critical for understanding and making decisions relevant both for food security and for sustainability.
And we do have corn here as one of our layers. We also have rice, we have avocado and the guacamole. Can we see any of these staple foods being grown in the US?
Absolutely, and that's a large focus both of USDA, for example, and that NASA has partnered with very closely for many years now. And what they're focused on is utilizing satellite data for being able to monitor the extent of crops, of where corn is being grown versus soybeans versus wheat. And as we know, if a farmer plants corn this year, he might plant soybeans the next year. So it's very important in the US, and USDA has a large focus on that. But also, given that our food system is so interconnected, being able to monitor both inside the US and globally, and satellites enable us to do that.
So you monitor crops all over the world, but who ends up using this data and how exactly does it help? Is it whole governments that rely on it, or do small-scale farmers and land managers use it?
That's a great question, and in fact, it's everybody. It's ministries of agriculture, it's statistical departments who are trying to estimate how much production they're going to have of different crops. It's the early warning community, the humanitarian community, who are trying to assess where there are going to be food shortages and where there will need to be either food aid or other mitigation activities. And it's of course also farmers. And one example is the Crop Monitor program under GeoGlam. This provides information at the global scale on a monthly basis operationally, really targeted more at policy makers who need to have a very quick way of understanding what are global crop conditions. And so we've been working with that policy community for a long time to develop products that provide us a good global picture of crop conditions and food supplies across the world.
So our dip's moving along here. We have corn next. And it sounds like a lot of the information you've talked about could help forecast events like food shortages. Is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And so what we try to do is use the satellite data to give us an early warning as soon as possible, and really we start to monitor crops as soon as they're in the ground and growing, and try to put an alert as early as possible if we start to see, for example, the impacts of a drought developing, and track that through the season. And this information, as early as possible, is really critical for policymakers, for governments, to be able to take mitigation actions to prevent food shortages or to prevent the biggest impacts of food shortages and implement mitigation strategies well ahead of time.
And I know that NASA works with the USDA, and so why is it important that agencies like NASA and USDA work together?
USDA is the United States Department of Agriculture. They are responsible for providing global information on a monthly basis on crop production, and their forecasts set the gold standard, to which agricultural commodity markets react to. So as soon as those numbers come out every month, you can see the reaction and the response in international markets. And so it makes a lot of sense for us, for NASA to be working very closely with USDA to ensure that they're able to take up the best technology and analytics to inform their forecasting and their policy development and decisions ultimately.
It sounds like it's such an important and exciting time now for agriculture monitoring.
Yeah, it really is an exciting time for agricultural monitoring and for its potential to help inform both our food security and sustainability decisions, and to help get us towards the SDG goal of zero hunger, increasing food supplies, and at the same time doing that in a sustainable manner.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. And what's also amazing is our dip here, which is almost complete, but I think we can all agree that what would make it perfect is a healthy layer of cheese. Delicious. There we go. Thanks so much for joining us today, Imbal, and for sharing all of this really great information. And thanks everyone for watching. Happy snacking.
If you want another look at any of the stories we showed you today, go over to YouTube and Facebook at those addresses right there, and you'll find them all, along with lots of other great features on a whole variety of NASA topics. If you're looking for good conversation about human spaceflight, check out Houston, We Have a Podcast, our weekly show about all aspects of human spaceflight and NASA's missions of exploration. Today, Gary Jordan learns about the remarkable range of cool things we have in our lives today, thanks to NASA's technology transfer from the space program to our real lives. Go to nasa.gov/podcast for this week's episode and all the previous episodes. You'll also find the full library of all NASA podcasts right there, and they're all on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and SoundCloud too. You can get the latest from all over NASA delivered to you every week. Just go to nasa.gov/subscribe to sign up for the NASA newsletter.